Hey guys, DM Scotty, DM Crafter, good to have you with me. Today I want to talk about a measureless and gridless system that I've been using that has worked really well in my games. I thought others might like to see how I do this. It's really, the measuring sticks aren't bad, but they're a little obtrusive into the immersion of the game. And I find that this kind of free-form movement just makes the game a little more immersive, and combats to actually go faster because you're not measuring and that kind of thing. It also, I feel that it's just sad when a warrior is trying to charge or go somewhere and he's just like a couple inches short or something like that. It's like, why not just let him go the whole way? As long as it's not across a football field, why not just, time is kind of relative in this combat anyway. People are moving around and swirling around. Why not just let him get to the target and fight? There's no reason besides just some fiddly rules. Okay, we're all imagining this world anyway. Why not fudge it a bit? It's for fun. It's to bring out the fun factor of the game. Okay, because I like to think about the game in terms of what's happening to the characters, what fun and exciting is happening to the characters, as opposed to, oh, what rule am I using right now? So that always makes the game more fun to me. Okay. Now, I was inspired by this by a game called 13th Age, which doesn't really use miniatures, but was kind of talking about a few of these concepts, and I kind of stole some of that and grafted it on to miniatures combat to make it measureless. Okay. Because I really don't like the kind of conga-line way that most role-playing games work. It's like move, 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 attack, move, 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 attack. Which is there are a lot of situations where that doesn't make any sense. Like if an archer's sitting there and he's got his bow ready, and a warrior comes running up, the archer is going to get a shot off before the warrior gets there. As long as he's not surprised, he's going to be able to get a shot off. Okay, whether it hits or not, that's a good question. But that's why you roll the dice. But hey, I mean, the warrior and the archer is probably going to get if they have a ranged weapon, probably going to get a shot, and they have it ready, probably going to get a shot off before the warrior gets to them. Okay, so that's what this system's kind of trying to emulate. Is trying to emulate kind of a swirling melee movement, and then then the action. So the system is everybody takes their movement, including the enemies, first before any actions are done, with a few exceptions, and then everybody takes their actions. Okay, so that makes a different dynamic, an interesting dynamic, and it's really worked out good in my games. It took my players a little bit to get used to it, but once they got used to it, it really flourished in the game. So now that I want to say, people might be screaming their head off. This isn't for everybody. Okay, this is a very subjective system, especially on the DM's end. About judgments and rulings, snap judgments and rulings. So it's not for everybody. Some people, the gridded people who love their grids, will freak out when you try to introduce gridless and measuring, and then when you try to introduce this, they might have a coronary, because this is just like totally off the rails as far as like that kind of nitpicky rule, lawyering. So this is not, I'm going to say right now, may not be for your group, but from experience from my group, we have had a blast with this. It is so much easier than measuring. Measuring is not hard, but it does take somewhat from the immersion. And hell, unless there's something in your way, why not just move? Just move where you're going to move. Okay, so let's go to the table, and I'll talk about some of these rules, how this system works. There's a lot to take in on this video, so what I'm going to do is I'll try to post the rules in the video, and I will post the rules on my forum website. So if you want to go there and see the rule list, you can. That way you can have a a printed version of the rule list. So let's go to the table. I'll try to explain this system of measureless and gridless movement. Alright, so here's an outdoor combat. Now let's move through this combat using my rules of measureless movement. Okay. So what happens is there is a movement phase and an action phase, and they're two separate things. Okay. So everybody moves in the movement phase, including the enemies. This avoids the conga-line mentality. So everybody moves in the movement phase, and then everybody does an action. Okay. Now actions can be out of sequence. They can be in the movement phase depending on certain variables. Alright. So now what we do is we determine initiative. What I do is I don't do individual initiative and back and forth like most games do. I just have the entire side roll initiative like older D&D. What I do is I allow the character to use their initiative bonus. Whoever gets the higher initiative, that side goes first, and they can go in whatever order they want. And the same with the enemies. Now to make it a little fairer for the enemies, I never thought it's been very fair for the enemies where you roll one die for the entire group. What I do is I roll as many dice for the enemies as there are PCs. So I have, the mage might have a different initiative, so I could roll his dice separately. And then I would roll 2 other lizardmen initiatives to make up for the how many PCs there are. So the PCs are getting 3 dice and the enemies are getting 3 dice. So I always try to make sure that the enemies get the same amount of dice as the PCs. So if there's 6 PCs and I have 10 enemies, then 6 of the enemies will roll their initiative, and then we determine which is the highest. So I think that's a little fairer for the enemies than the PCs getting just a bunch of extra chances. Okay. So now that you've got the initiative worked out, the side that wins has to determine if they want to move first or if they want to let the other side move first. Now, there can be advantages and disadvantages. One thing to let the other side move first is you get to see where they're going, but if a model moves up, okay, and is base to base with your figure, that figure is engaged, okay? And once that figure is engaged for that turn, they can't move away, all right? So now he's moved, he can't move, he's stuck, okay? So that keeps figures from just going, oh, okay, I'm going to move away here, all right? So which could be really annoying, for the side that goes first, because then you never get to melee, if that side doesn't want to. Okay, so I always have that they're engaged. Now, one thing you could do also is I have interception. Okay, so if this lizard guy goes for the mage, the warrior could try to intercept the lizard man. Okay, so basically you just kind of do a midway interception like that if they're coming towards you. And then the warrior would do an attack. Now the attack doesn't do any damage. The only thing the attack does is determine whether the guy is intercepted or not. So if he completes the attack and hits, the lizard is stopped in his tracks. If not, the lizard pushes past him and gets to the mage. Now you can determine where you intercept the creature in its path. It might be wiser to wait for him to get near the mage and then try to intercept him, because if you fail the interception, the guy might move up and you could still attack. But if the guy decides to go around a little bit, then you're pretty much out of luck, you're out of range. So but essentially if you fail the interception, you're kind of stuck, because if you're a melee fighter you really can't fight because there's no one to fight next to you. So you're taking a chance, okay, if you do that. So generally it's probably better for the side that won the initiative to go first, but there can be situations where it may not be. Okay, so say the warrior decides that he is going to charge. Okay, so charge would be we're going to start the movement phase, and the players are going to go first. Okay, so he charges. Okay, now any of these guys could intercept him. Okay, they decide not to and just let him come up. All right, so now they don't have to make an interception roll. They're not stuck and all that kind of stuff. Generally, the enemies would probably make interception rolls if there's a leader involved, like if they're trying to protect a leader. Although the warrior would have a hard time getting up here. He can't get up there with a charge because he's got to he's got a barrier he has to get up. So in my games, it has to be in most games, it has to be a straight line, no obstructions to do a charge. Now the benefit of a charge is that you can do an out of sequence attack. So when you charge, you do your action in the movement phase and attack. All right. Now there is another condition of in the movement phase where I call it snap fire. Okay, if archers are ready or mages, they can fire an at will power while someone is moving. So say the warrior's charging, okay, excuse me, and the mage decides to shoot an at will power at the warrior and hits him, okay. The warrior still gets to continue on with his attack, but the mage snap fired at the warrior. So now the mage has used his attack power, okay, for the round. He doesn't get to do an action in the action phase because he's already used it, okay. The warrior attacks the lizard man with a charge, so he attacks in the same round as the movement phase, so he also loses his action in the action phase, okay. So the mage decides to move up a bit behind cover, okay, and he's not gonna snap fire anything because he wants to do an encounter power. All right. So now we have the rogue. So the rogue decides, well, hey, maybe I want to get some high ground. Okay. So she runs over here. Okay. She does a brilliant acrobatics check and manages to get up on this stone very easily. All right. Now what I have is when you do something like that, your movement essentially stops. So if you get to a barrier like this and you have to go up or down or whatever, or something traps you or whatever, you could you stop. In some situations like slick floors or something, you may want to have them make multiple checks, and like 3 or 4 or 5 checks, and then however many they make is how far they go, like percentage wise how far they made it. But generally something like this, I have them stop when they get up on something that's like an elevation or something. Okay, so now she has some higher ground. Okay, so now all the characters have moved. Okay, so this guy's engaged, he can't move. All right, the wizard decided not to move. Okay, or he's going to decide not to move, he's going to stay where he's at. He decides he's going to go after this rogue. Okay, so he makes his check and gets up here. But what you could do is you could say that basically this character would get an attack of opportunity as this lizard guy is trying to scramble up this rock, right? So she gets an attack of opportunity. You could say if she hits, he doesn't make it, no matter what his roll is to get up, because she basically knocks him down. So that's a little more thematic than, oh, I just got a hit, you still do what you were doing, blah, blah, blah. That makes it a little more of a challenge for this guy to get up, because now she's on his case. Okay. So she knocks him and knocks him back down. He doesn't make it up the rock. Okay. So he essentially can't do anything. All right. These guys have moved. He decided not to move. This guy, and the attack of opportunity was out of sequence, so that was why that worked. So now this guy decides he's going to go for the wizard. Okay, so the wizard was deciding he wanted to cast an encounter power, so he's not going to do a snap fire thing. He's just going to wait there. All right. So now he's stuck over there with that poor lizard guy. All right. So now we do the action phase. Okay. They've already attacked. He's snap fired. Okay. So I'm doing the characters first. She is going to pull a dagger and throw it at the mage. So she does that. That's her action. Okay. Now the wizard casts a spell and say he does something to the lizard guy, and the lizard guy wanders off, or he did something to him, blows him back, or whatever spell. Okay, so yeah, now so all the characters have done an action. Okay, so now it's time for the enemy's action. Okay, this guy can't attack because he got blown back. All right, this guy can't attack because he was trying to scramble up the rock, and the rogue knocked him off the rock as he was trying to get up there. This guy can't attack because he snap fired. This guy can't attack because he's engaged with the warrior. So this guy attacks the warrior back. Okay. So you see how this is progressing. Okay. So then we go to the next round, and we do the initiative. You could do initiative again, or just keep the initiative you have. I generally just keep the initiative I have. So now you do the movement phase. Then you do the action phase. Now this guy, since he had engaged this target last time, this target could try to move away this round. Okay, but if he does, of course, he gets attack of opportunity. So you're only engaged for the first round that you're attacked. Okay, so this guy could possibly move away. All right. Now remember though, if this guy did try to move away, the warrior could try to intercept again. He may not hold the guy. He would also get an attack of opportunity. So that first round he engages him that he's stuck. Then the second round, the lizard decides discretion is a better part of valor and runs away. Then the warrior gets an attack of opportunity and could try to intercept him again and stop him. Okay. So if he hits him, then the lizard is stuck again and can't move away. Okay. So that makes running away a tricky maneuver, but it can happen. Now I've kind of shown the basics. I want to go to a different, do a little bit of different setup with the outdoor encounter, and we'll talk about another thing that can happen. Okay, here I have another encounter set up. I want to show you a little bit of tomfoolery that the players might try on you. Okay, so you've got this wizard here has some protectors up front, and we got the players. All right, so say the players win initiative, and they're going to go first. So the warrior's like, well, I have a couple choices. If I go through here, right, I'm going to get attacks of opportunity on me. I'm going to get 2 attacks of opportunity on me, right? Well, what if I do like this, and I avoid all the attacks of opportunity? Okay, that's a bit of cheesery that your players may try, and they only tried it at my table once, because basically what I do is I have a kind of a line of scrimmage. Okay, so this is the line of scrimmage. If the players pass through this line of scrimmage to get to someone in the back, these models aren't static. They're moving around. They're as a model it's just sitting there, but in the game world they'd be moving around, parrying, dodging, this kind of thing. So they're not just static people standing there. It's just kind of the area where they're at. Okay, so if someone moves through an area that is an enemy area, I would still do the same 2 attacks to this guy. Okay. Or you could be nicer and let 1 attack, even if he went way out and didn't get this, and wasn't even near this guy. You could give him 1 or 2 attacks depending on how cheesy you think the player is being. You could punish them for being cheesy. Okay, so you got to there's a lot of give and take in this measureless movement. Okay, so you got to take that into account. So the players have to accept your rulings on this kind of stuff. Okay, so that's really the only way this can be abused, because the DM has control over how far the characters can go. Okay. Okay, so let's go over the rules one more time on the cave tile. So say we have our adventurers and they come in, and just as they come in the room, the mage casts some kind of mud pit near the center of the room. Okay. say the players win initiative, okay, so they decide they're going to engage. Looks like the lizard folk have javelins, so they're going to be tossing them at him, so probably not a good idea to just sit back. So the warrior decides he's going to try to cross this to get across, okay, this mud, okay. So what he could try to do is get a running jump, but he's probably not going to make it, okay. Now if he does the running jump, he essentially is going to stop wherever his roll makes it to, okay. So if he barely makes it, he might right there, right on the edge of that, okay. Now he could try to just slog through it. You know, depending if you want it to be slick, you could do acrobatics or athletics. If you wanted it to be like pushing through the mud, I would do athletics. So he tries to go through he decides he's going to try to go. So it's like 3 inches. So I would say that he would have to roll 3 d20, and he'd have to succeed at every check to be able to push through. And if he was able to push through, he could actually continue on, okay? Or you could have him make 4 checks to come out of the mud. So 3 or 4 checks. And if he makes those 3 or 4 checks, he actually gets to a guy. If he doesn't, if he makes 2 checks, you could say he's like in the middle, okay? So that's a good way to determine where someone might be in an encounter if they fail their checks, okay? So the mage decides he's going to come over here and take some cover, and the rogue decides she's going to try to do it. So you could have her do athletic or you might even have her try to climb over the rock and then get here, because you know it's easier. So you could have her do, depending on how many checks you wanted them to move through the obstacle, you could have them move through. Generally, if somebody goes over an obstacle like this, I have them stop on the other side. Okay, so say she makes it and she stops on the other side. Okay, but she's not in the mud. All right. So then now the lizard folk can move. Okay, and say this one moves up. All right. He doesn't have any problem with the mud, so he just goes right in. This lizard folk comes over here, and then you could actually have him come through the mud and come at the mage. Okay. Because you could say that the mud doesn't affect the lizard folk. That's a great way to kind of hamper your players, but not the enemies. So that's kind of how to deal with those obstacles and terrain. But let's reset and talk about more just straight about the rules. Okay. So we'll take the mud off. All right. So say the players win initiative, they're going to go first. Okay, they decide to move first. Okay. So all the players will move first, and then all the enemies will move. Okay. So the warrior decides to charge. He's got a straight shot, so he charges this guy. Nobody tries to intercept him, so he just charges right there. He gets to attack right then and there because it's a charge. So he loses his action for the action phase. Okay. The rogue decides that she's going to engage, so she moves up. It's not a charge, but this guy's engaged, so he can't move away. Now, the wizard decides he's not going to move, he's going to stay where he is, because if he does move, this guy could try to intercept him. Okay, so he decides he's not going to move. Okay, so now it's their phase, so the wizard moves over a little bit, because he figures nobody's going to try to engage him. This guy moves up, but as he's moving up, the wizard snap fires a few magic missiles at him, okay, and the guy continues on. It doesn't kill him, so he continues on. So now the wizard has used his action. So now, once everybody's moved, that's the movement phase, and we move to the action phase. Okay, so the warrior already attacked and is charged, so he doesn't get an action phase. Okay, the players go first. The rogue attacks. She gets her action phase. The mage does not get his action phase because he already attacked. Now remember, you can always use action points to get another action. So you could conceivably attack in the action phase by using an action point. Okay, And remember, you can only use one of those around, so. But you could do that. That would be a way to get around that, that limitation. Okay. So now it's the enemy's turn. All right. So he came over here to attack. He gets his attack. He attacks the warrior back, and then this lizard man attacks her. Now, then the wizard, of course, would get his attack because he didn't snap fire or anything. He would get whatever spell he was trying to do. Okay, so say things are going bad for this guy, and he decides to run. So he runs out. The warrior decides just to do a attack of opportunity, not intercept. The rogue gets an attack of opportunity too, and then he runs out if he lives. Okay. Because the warrior wants to help the mage, so he decides he's going to go help the mage. Okay, so he would on his movement he could charge, or he could just do a normal movement and move over there. Okay, so that's really how it works. I mean, you just do your movement phase. Everybody does their movement. So both sides are moving on the same. Essentially at the same time, but you're doing it in like initiative order. So whoever has the initiative moves first, and then they move second, which is I kind of like that idea as opposed to the conga-line idea. And then everybody gets their action on the action phase, unless you've used it with a few exceptions. You've got snap firing, which can use your action. You can only use you can only use an at-will power for a snap fire. You can't use an encounter or daily. Or a charge. If you charge, you go ahead and use your attack in that action. Well, another thing you could do is you could spend, during your action phase, you could move again. But like I say, if you got engaged that round, you can't move. You couldn't move again, of course. But if for some reason you wanted to move, and protect somebody, you could move. You would forfeit your action, but you could do your movement. Okay, so that's pretty much the breakdown of how this system works. I've been using it for a while, and it seems to work pretty well. I haven't really had a lot of problems. It's nice not having to really do the measure. We do occasionally use the measuring stick for spells and things. But remember that the bases of a miniature are an inch. So say somebody gets slowed, and in D&D 4e, you can move 2 inches. So that's just 1, 2. It's not that hard to visualize 2 inches. Okay, when you get longer inches, it can be a little trickier to visualize. But it's really nice because the measuring sticks don't intrude into the game. It's really just common sense. A lot of this is trying to give a little bit of rules to common sense as far as that goes. So I've really enjoyed this system. It's really unobtrusive as far as the measuring sticks, and I really haven't had a lot of player complaints as far as movement because, well, heck, I mean, they can move as far as they want, so what's to complain about? With some limitations that we've talked about, of course. So there we go. I hope this was helpful. Some of you may want to try to use it. Some of you may be, oh, what the heck is that? No way. So thought I'd put it out there if you were interested, and I'll see you next time on The Craft. Hey crafters, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the DM's Craft. Make sure to subscribe, and I have tons of other videos, as you can see. I am the originator of the 2.5D method of crafting tiles. I also do dirt cheap terrain for the table. If all this intrigues you, make sure you check out all the videos below. Also, join my forum. We have lots of great crafters on there who give advice. I have a link above and below. And last but not least, remember, go forth and craft!